In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NBA games happening on December 21st, 2025, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NBA games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Chicago Bulls versus Atlanta Hawks. The Chicago Bulls head to State Farm Arena to take on the Atlanta Hawks on Sunday, and the setup is a little funny when you look at how these two have been playing lately. The Bulls come in as road underdogs, even though they have actually shown some life, while the Hawks keep tripping over the same problems game after game. Chicago is monitoring Kobe White, who is listed as questionable with soreness in his left ankle. That matters, since he has been one of their key sparks both as a scorer and as a guard who can push tempo when things bog down. On the other side, the Hawks are still operating without Kristaps Porzingis in the lineup, which keeps them thinner than they would like in terms of front court spacing and secondary offense. What makes this matchup interesting is that the market still leans toward Atlanta at home, even as they keep stacking losses. The Hawks have dropped 6 of their last 8, and that type of run usually leaves you second-guessing every rotation pattern and late-game decision. Their home record sits at 5 wins to 7 losses straight up, which is not exactly the kind of fortress you expect from a favorite. Sure, Trae Young is back and available, and on paper that should be a big deal, but the results have not really followed. Even with him in the lineup, Atlanta has looked shaky, especially against teams they should be able to handle. They were not particularly convincing against the Hornets or the Spurs, which says a lot, because those are the types of games you use to stabilize your season, not complicate it. Chicago, in contrast, has quietly pieced together a nice little stretch. The Bulls have won 3 of their last 4, including back-to-back upsets over the Cavaliers, which is not something you just brush off. That kind of run tends to build confidence in the locker room, and you can usually feel it in the way they defend late in games. The recent head-to-head history also leans toward the team catching points, with the underdog covering in 8 of the past 10 meetings between these two. Their last matchup on November 27th ended with a 128-123 win for the Bulls. That game showed that Chicago can keep up offensively while still making just enough plays to edge out Atlanta late. It would not be surprising to see a similar script here, where the Hawks have enough talent to threaten a win, but the Bulls play with more composure and rhythm. So from a spread angle, taking the points with Chicago feels like the more sensible side, even if Atlanta finally wakes up for a night. As our first pick for this matchup, the Chicago Bulls to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Chicago is averaging 118.3 points per game on 47.3% shooting from the field while giving up 122.1 points on 47.7% shooting. That combination usually tells you 2 things at once: they can score and they give plenty back. From deep, the Bulls are hitting 36.3% of their 3-point attempts and shooting 79.2% at the free throw line. They are also pulling down 45.3 rebounds per game, which helps extend possessions and create second-chance opportunities. When a team can both shoot reasonably well and crash the glass, you often get those little scoring surges that push a total higher than it initially looks. Atlanta is not exactly shy on offense either. The Hawks are putting up 117.6 points per game on 48.1% shooting and allowing 118.3 points on 47.4% shooting. So both offenses sit in a similar range, and both defenses give up similar efficiency, which usually suggests stretches where neither side gets many stops. From the perimeter, the Hawks are listed at 6.5% from beyond the arc and 79% from the free throw line, while allowing opponents to shoot 35.9% from deep and collecting 41.9 rebounds per game. Even without getting too tangled in the exact numbers, the overall profile is clear enough. Atlanta games tend to involve solid shooting, some gaps on defense, and enough missed rotations to keep the scoreboard moving. Put those two styles together and you have a matchup where both teams are comfortable playing at a scoring-friendly pace, and both have shown they will trade baskets for long stretches. With Chicago scoring well recently and Atlanta still leaning on offense to cover for its defensive issues, this setup leans toward a game where the total is threatened from early on and remains under pressure throughout. That kind of environment favors a play on a higher scoring outcome rather than a slog. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Miami Heat versus New York Knicks. The Miami Heat head into Madison Square Garden on Sunday night to take on the New York Knicks, and this one comes wrapped in injury question marks from the Heat side. Miami has already ruled out Pelle Larsson, Tyler Herro, and Nikola Jovic, while Davion Mitchell and Andrew Wiggins are sitting in that awkward questionable bucket, and on the Knicks' side Landry Shamet and Miles McBride remain out. With that much uncertainty hanging over the rotation, this is one of those matchups where checking who actually suits up close to tip-off really matters, especially if you are thinking about the spread. December has turned into a rough stretch for the Heat. They have stumbled all the way down to 7th in the East with just 1 win in 7 games, which is quite a slide for a team that opened the season at 14 wins to 7 losses straight up. The offense that carried them early has gone missing, and that is particularly odd because they recently got Tyler Herro back from his earlier injury, which should have boosted their scoring. The three-point shooting has gone cold, and not just in a small sample way, although there were a few encouraging signs in that recent loss to Boston where they knocked down 19 threes but still ended up losing by 13 points. That kind of game almost feels like a tease. You see the shots fall again, but the result still goes against you. On the flip side, the Knicks are riding one of their better early season runs at 19 wins to 8 losses, highlighted by an NBA Cup final win that gave the fanbase something extra to shout about. The crowd at MSG has had plenty to enjoy, with 13 wins in 15 home games so far. One of those 2 losses came recently against the 76ers in a 116-107 defeat, where New York hung around for much of the game but visibly faded late after a demanding run of travel and games. That kind of schedule spot catches up with almost everyone sooner or later. With that fatigue situation now behind them, a bounce-back effort against the Heat makes sense, especially with New York knowing Miami already took 1 meeting earlier this season. Teams remember those, especially in these long-running East rivalries. You can almost feel that itch for revenge, and when you look up and down the rosters in their current states, the overall quality edge leans toward the Knicks. It would be very out of character for them to let Miami grab a 2-0 edge in the regular season series without a serious response. The recent form trends do not do the Heat any favors either. They have cooled off in a big way over the last couple of weeks, going 2 wins to 8 losses against the spread in their last 10. That fast-paced, high-scoring version of Miami that was fun to back early on has basically disappeared. Throw in the fact that half of their usual rotation is showing up on the injury report, and it becomes even harder to trust their consistency for a full 4 quarters. New York, by contrast, comes into this spot looking much healthier overall and carrying an 18 wins to 10 losses mark against the spread this season. This is still a rivalry matchup, and Miami has had recent success in the series, including that earlier win, so it is not a free square. But the combination of the Heat's current offensive struggles and those lingering injury concerns tilts the risk toward one side here. Honestly, even if you assumed every Heat player on that long injury list suddenly became available, the more reliable approach would still lean toward the Knicks, given how strong they looked before the loss to Philadelphia. The spread is a bit on the high side, so it is fair to pause for a second. But with the way the Knicks have been performing at home and the shape the Heat are in, a comfortable New York win in front of their own fans remains the more likely outcome. As our first pick for this matchup, the New York Knicks to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Miami Heat are averaging 120.1 points on 47.3% shooting and allowing 117.3 points on 44.8% shooting. On the surface, that sounds like a classic recipe for higher scoring games, and on some nights it absolutely has been. They are knocking down 36.8% of their threes and hitting 78.2% at the free throw line while pulling in 45.6 rebounds per game. That rebounding presence can keep possessions alive, and their shooting profile suggests they do not completely fall apart offensively, even when the eye test says they are struggling. The Knicks bring similarly strong scoring numbers. They are averaging 120.2 points per game on 47.9% shooting and giving up 112.4 points on 46% shooting. From long range, they are connecting on 37.5% of their attempts and hitting 79% from the stripe, while allowing opponents to shoot 36.3% from 3 and grabbing 46.3 rebounds per contest. Both teams, on paper, have the tools to put up big numbers, and both can control the glass, which is usually friendly for scoring. Here is the thing, though, averages can be a little misleading without context. Miami's recent slump has featured more inconsistency on offense than those season-long numbers suggest, and when a team goes through a stretch like that, the temptation is often to slow things down a bit and grind, especially on the road in a tough environment like Madison Square Garden. On the other side, the Knicks have enough defensive backbone to tighten things up when they lock in, and they have already shown they can hold opponents below their usual output when the game script calls for it. So while both attacks are capable and the raw stats lean toward plenty of points, the current form and matchup hints at the possibility of a game that does not fully match those offensive averages. If Miami's three-point shooting remains streaky and the Knicks lean into a more controlled style, you can easily get long stretches where both teams trade stops instead of quick buckets. That kind of pattern slowly drags the final number lower than people expect just from glancing at scoring averages. With that combination of recent offensive wobble from the Heat and a Knicks defense that can raise the floor when needed, the angle on the total points tilts toward a result that lands under the projected number rather than a full track meet. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Toronto Raptors versus Brooklyn Nets. The Toronto Raptors head into Barclays Center on Sunday to square off with the Brooklyn Nets, and both teams arrive carrying a weird mix of flaws and momentum. Toronto is still without RJ Barrett and Jacob Poeltl, which chips away at both their scoring and their interior presence. On the other side, Brooklyn has ruled out Drake Powell, Cam Thomas, and Haywood Highsmith again, so they are not exactly at full strength either. Both teams had been piecing together some momentum before running into tougher opponents, and it feels a bit like they are meeting at that awkward stage where each side is trying to prove that early season struggles are really behind them. Now, I am not exactly thrilled about laying points with the Raptors on the road when you look at their recent form. They are just 3 wins to 7 losses straight up and 2 wins to 8 losses against the spread over their last 10 games, which does not scream trustworthy favorite. Still, if Toronto is serious about stopping the bleeding and keeping themselves in the playoff race, these are exactly the kinds of matchups they need to handle. Road game, short number, beatable opponent, that is the checklist. And as harsh as it sounds, the Nets still are not a good team overall. Yes, they have shown a bit more life after that horrendous start, but the foundation is shaky enough that you do not suddenly treat them like a solid home dog. The recent history between these two also tilts in Toronto's favor. The Raptors have gone 5 wins to 0 losses straight up and 4 wins to 1 loss against the spread in the last 5 meetings, including a 10-point victory about a month ago. That is not ancient history, it is very recent proof that Toronto's style has matched up well with Brooklyn. The Nets have also struggled in this specific role. They are 4 wins to 8 losses against the spread in their last 12 as underdogs of 5 points or fewer, which suggests they often hang around in theory but fall short of expectations in practice. So even if it feels a bit uncomfortable, the logic still leans toward Toronto being the better team in this matchup, even shorthanded. Sometimes you just accept the small bit of risk, trust the matchup edge, and lay the short number. As our first pick for this matchup, the Toronto Raptors to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. The Toronto Raptors are averaging 114.6 points on 48.2% shooting from the field and allowing 112.9 points on 46.4% shooting. They are hitting 36.2% of their three-point attempts and 76.2% at the free throw line, while grabbing 42.3 rebounds per game. That mix of efficient shooting and solid rebounding usually supports steady scoring, since they can both finish plays and extend possessions with second-chance looks. Even when their offense looks a bit clunky by feel, the numbers show they still find their way to respectable totals. Brooklyn brings a slightly different profile but still leans in a scoring-friendly direction. The Nets are averaging 109.7 points per game on 44.7% shooting and giving up 115.5 points on 49% shooting. They are connecting on 34.3% from beyond the arc and 78.5% from the free throw line, while allowing opponents to shoot 37.8% from deep and pulling down 40.4 rebounds per contest. That combination, weaker defense with vulnerable perimeter coverage and decent offensive shooting, often leads to games where both sides get clean looks and run into open threes. When you put those two styles together, you get a matchup that naturally leans toward a higher scoring environment. Toronto can punish soft defenses with efficient half-court sets and transition chances, and Brooklyn's tendency to concede high percentages, especially from outside, helps keep the pace of scoring healthy. On the other end, the Raptors' defense is good enough to compete but not so suffocating that it regularly drags totals into ugly, low-scoring territory. So while neither side is an all-out track meet every night, the current numbers suggest that this particular pairing is more likely to produce steady offensive success than a slow, grinding slog. With both teams capable of getting to their averages and the Nets' defensive profile inviting points, the setup leans toward a game that pushes past the projected total rather than stalls out below it. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.